I'm not sure which of my disasters to tell you. I've had a request for something from South America, which we'll get to. I thought I would start early on in my life. At the age of 19, I decided that Britain was not the place for me, and I decided I was going to emigrate and find my way in the world and so on. And I had a tip-off that in Munich, BMW were hiring people like me, Brits and Irish Gastarbeiter basically, to go and work and do these cleaning jobs, and they were paying 15 Deutschmarks an hour, which for a 19-year-old was a lot of money, 7.5 euros an hour. And so I persuaded my friend Adrian to come with me, and we would hitchhike to Munich, and we would make so much money working for BMW, we'd start our career, everything would be great.
Croatian dream.
It was even bigger than the Croatian dream. And my friend was very reluctant, but he trusted me and he said, okay. So I told him hitchhiking is really, really easy. You just put your thumb out, somebody stops, everything's fine. And it took us 12 hours to go 70 miles from London to Dover. And he was already pretty angry with me. And we got to Dover to get the ferry to Ostend in Belgium, 4-hour ferry, it was midnight. And he was really upset with me, and I wasn't that happy. And he said to me, let's play a drinking game. So, which is obviously a smart thing to do at midnight on a ferry. So he told me to choose my favorite spirit. I said vodka. And he chose whiskey. And he said, okay, we're going to play this card game. He had a pack of cards, and he explained the rules, not very well. And he said, if you lose a round, you have to drink 2 fingers of your bottle of your liter of vodka. And I said, okay. And then he said, there's one more rule, which is if you lose, and thus ends my story.
He asked for an embarrassing
Yeah. I told you to.
I'll go first.
I told you to intervene. You okay? So he said there's another rule, which is that if you lose, I can introduce a new rule. And my rule is you cannot mention any numbers for the next 1 hour in conversation. If you mention a number, you have to drink 2 more fingers. I said, no problem. So we start playing, and he said, what time does the ferry get in? And I said, 4 o'clock. He said, 2 more fingers. Basically, I drank a litre of vodka in 20 minutes. And when we were playing, there was this other guy called Ian. He was hitchhiking as well on his own, and he sort of joined the game as well and so on like that. And the last thing I remember, I had half a bottle of vodka left. That's the last thing I remember. In the morning, I woke up, and I couldn't move my legs. And I was literally couldn't move my legs, and I'm like, I'm just panicking. I've got my eyes closed, I'm panicking, and I'm trying to think, where was I last night? And I remember I was on the ferry, we were drinking vodka, I met this guy called Ian, the hitchhiker, and I don't remember anything else, and I can't move my legs. And I was absolutely terrified. And then I thought, what am I wearing? And I was wearing just my boxer shorts. And I was like, did I take my clothes off or did somebody else? I have no idea, and I can't move my legs, and I'm absolutely terrified. And eventually, and my head was really hurting. And then I got the strength to look down towards my legs. I honestly wasn't even sure if my legs would still be there. And I looked down, and my legs were strapped to this bed. And I'm like, what the hell happened last night? And then I felt this really big pain in my arm. And I looked at my arm, and there was this big tube coming out of my arm, going up to, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And I look around this room, and the walls are all bare white. There's no signs, am I in Belgium or England or maybe Japan? I've got no idea what happened last night. And the only other thing in the room was this other guy, Ian, the hitchhiker. And Ian was asleep, and I said, Ian, Ian, Ian. And it was the most depressing thing of my life, because Ian kind of woke up, realized he couldn't move his legs, wondered what the hell had happened, and then, looked, he said, where are we? I said, I don't know. And we were there for an hour trying to figure out, are we in Belgium, England, Japan, whatever. And it was really, really, really terrifying. And we couldn't move our legs. And eventually this nurse came in, and she said, she spoke in French. And I was like, oh, we must be in Belgium then. And I said, hi, can you just explain where he says, you English drunkards, you come in here off the ferry, always drunk, we need to fucking just do blah, 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 blah. And she then unstrapped us, made us have a shower, changed our sheets, and I'm like, this is going to be really expensive. And then she brought in a really nice breakfast, which I couldn't look at, and nor could he. And I'm like, when can we leave? When the doctor's seen you. When will that be? Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. You English, you drunkards, everything. She was really, really sort of like this. And I'm thinking, like, where's my friend? My friend, we were going to discover the world together, and on the first night he's disappeared, and I've lost my legs in Belgium. And eventually, about midday, he comes in, and he's like, and I was like, what happened? He says, what do you remember? And I said, I remember I had half a liter of vodka, and that's it. And your rules. I remember saying it was 4 o'clock, and suddenly I had to drink 2 fingers. And he said, well, you basically finished the bottle in 20 minutes. Then you got really tired. When we arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning in Ostend ferry, you then decided you wanted to have a little sleep on the ferry, and I could not move you at all. Eventually, I persuaded you that there would be some beer in Belgium if we got off the ferry, and I jumped up, and that was fine. But I couldn't really walk, and so I was like carrying you, my rucksack, his rucksack, trying to get off the ferry like this, when Ian, the other guy, was lying on the floor and grabbed him by the ankle and went, don't leave me, and then vomited all over his foot. And so we apparently were leaving, the 3 of us with the rucksacks, and then the police, they sent the emergency services, and that was it. So I realized my legs were fine, and physically I was fine. My head was hurting, I felt really dehydrated, I felt really tired. And eventually the doctor came and he said, okay, you can now go. Here's the bill, which you need to pay through your insurance, everything else. And so we were free to go. It was a really hot day, and I was really dehydrated. And Adrian said to me, the motorway is 500 meters. If you can just walk 500 meters, we can hitchhike from there. I'll do all the hitchhiking, you sit down, everything will be fine. So I said, I'm just going to the toilet. So I went to the toilet, and I just lay down in the toilet, and I started to sleep because I was so tired. He came in, he kicked me, and we got up, and I got outside the hospital reception, and I just vomited everywhere. I was just really in a really, really bad way. And he's like, keep going to the motorway. So I got to the motorway, and he said, okay, there's a little bank down here. You lie there where nobody can see you, and I'll try and hitchhike. And if I get a lift, I'll say, oh, there's 2 of us, and then we'll come in. So we tried that for about half an hour, and then I was really, really dehydrated and really thirsty, and there was a petrol station about 100 meters away. So I said, can you give me, I didn't have any money. I said, can you give me some money to buy some water? I'm really thirsty. He said, fine. So I walked away. I vomited twice on the way to the petrol station. I bought some water. I drank it. I vomited on the way back. And when I got back, all that was there was my green rucksack. There was no Adrian. And we had this agreement that hitchhiking for 2 people is quite hard. If one of us gets a lift, he should go, and then we'll meet in Munich. We had a meeting point in Munich. And in the 2 minutes I was gone, this car stopped, and he thought, fuck this. So he got in the car with his rucksack, and off he went to Munich, leaving me not only alone, but with 0 kuna, no money whatsoever, and dying. And I thought, I've got no choice but to carry on. And so I hitchhiked. I got to the Belgian-German border that night. I had the tent, so I put my tent up in this truck park, very noisy. I slept for 13 hours solid. I felt much, much better. And then I went to, there was a gas station, and there was an English guy who was a professor from Hull University, sociology, and he was just tanking up, and I said, sorry, are you going anywhere near Munich? And he said, I'm going to Venice. And I said, is there a chance you can give me a lift? Sorry, my friend's, he's left and I've got no money. And he said, get in the car. We stopped at the next service station. He bought me lunch. He drove me into the center of Munich. And he gave me 60 Deutschmarks and he said, good luck to you. And that was probably the kindest thing anybody has ever done to me.
German? Or?
No, he's from Hull University, from the UK. And that was it. And so I got to, and honestly, I'll never forget that guy, because I was literally at one of my lowest ebbs. And then I found the campsite we were staying, and there was a notice board. We had to leave a notice. And he'd actually only arrived 10 minutes before me.
Adrian.
Yeah.
So where did you bury him, by the way?
We met again, we'll come to Adrian a bit more in a second, but we met again for the first time in 35 years last year in London with my daughter Talia. It was amazing. He's still an idiot, but